Small daily habits are the invisible architects of our lives, quietly shaping our reality in ways most people never fully recognize. Each choice, no matter how minor it seems at the moment, compounds over time to create the circumstances we eventually find ourselves in. It is not the grand once in a lifetime events that dictate whether we succeed or struggle, but the repeated actions that we take or fail to take day after day. The human brain often underestimates the power of repetition, discounting tiny decisions as insignificant, yet their cumulative effect is enormous. Every minute spent mindlessly scrolling on a phone, every impulse buy, every deferred responsibility is a stitch in the fabric of a life defined by limitation, while every intentional, value-driven action becomes a thread that strengthens resilience, skill, and opportunity. Habits operate on autopilot. Most people do not consciously evaluate their daily routines. They let them unfold without reflection. We wake up, go through familiar motions, and then wonder why our lives remain stagnant. Patterns of behavior, repeated for months and years, solidify into identity. If your habits are not aligned with the vision of your life, they will inevitably produce results that frustrate you. It is a quiet, almost invisible form of self-sabotage. You do not see it day by day, but after years, the outcome is undeniable. Your circumstances, your financial state, your emotional resilience, and even your relationships are a mirror reflecting the sum of your habitual choices. Time magnifies habits. The small decisions that feel trivial today take on enormous weight when projected over months and years. A person who consistently invests time learning new skills, reading, creating, or networking builds momentum that compounds invisibly. Conversely, the person who consistently chooses distraction, avoidance, or short-term pleasure finds themselves farther from their goals, often without fully realizing how they arrived there. In this way, habits are like deposits and withdrawals in an invisible bank account of life. Every constructive choice is a deposit, every self-limiting choice is a withdrawal, and over time, the balance determines the quality of your life. Intentions alone are not enough. Many people spend hours planning, visualizing, and thinking about what they want, yet fail to translate that energy into repeated, concrete action. The difference between intention and reality is the consistent application of productive habits. Thinking about exercising does not strengthen your body. Showing up every day to move, even imperfectly, does. Thinking about learning a new skill does not improve your marketability. Practicing, experimenting, and creating consistently does. Habits bridge the gap between desire and accomplishment, and without them, even the most compelling dreams remain just ideas. The context in which habits are formed is equally critical. Your environment, the people you interact with, and the routines you default to all reinforce your behavioral patterns. A person surrounded by mediocrity and complacency will find it harder to cultivate habits that lead to growth. Similarly, a lifestyle that rewards instant gratification over disciplined effort strengthens habits that ultimately keep one financially, mentally, and emotionally limited. Habits are reinforced by repetition, and repetition is shaped by the surroundings we choose or tolerate. Awareness of this dynamic allows a person to consciously design an environment that supports the habits they aspire to maintain. Breaking down large goals into daily actionable habits transforms them from abstract dreams into achievable milestones. Financial freedom, emotional resilience, physical health, and personal growth are all the products of repeated action rather than sporadic effort. It is the person who reads a little each day, saves a portion of income consistently, and dedicates time to skill building who ultimately outpaces those who attempt monumental feats inconsistently. Small habits compound, and the results, though invisible at first, become undeniable over time. Understanding this compounding effect changes the way one approaches each day, making every decision a deliberate step toward a larger purpose. Consistency is more important than intensity. A habit repeated imperfectly but steadily creates momentum far greater than bursts of effort that are not maintained. Many people fail to recognize this and chase sporadic peaks of productivity or inspiration, only to revert to old patterns. The key lies in embedding habits into daily routines so that they become automatic, requiring less willpower and mental energy over time. This allows focus and energy to shift from maintaining habits to leveraging their benefits, multiplying their impact on life outcomes. Habits, once established, become a vehicle for growth rather than a chore, carrying the individual forward with compounding effect. Habits also shape identity. Every choice, every repeated behavior, communicates to yourself what you are capable of and who you are. When you consistently take actions aligned with growth, creation, and discipline, your self-image shifts to match those habits. Conversely, when your daily routines reinforce procrastination, consumption, or avoidance, your sense of self subtly contracts, reinforcing limitations. The most powerful people understand that identity is the product of habits, not the other way around, and they consciously choose actions that reflect the person they want to become rather than one society or circumstance assumes they will remain. Awareness is the first step toward mastery. Most people drift through life without pausing to reflect on the habits that govern them. Awareness allows observation, evaluation, and adjustment. It enables recognition of destructive patterns before they calcify into long-term consequences. The subtlety of habits makes them dangerous because they accumulate quietly. Awareness acts as a magnifying lens, highlighting behaviors that demand attention. From this vantage point, one can begin to deliberately cultivate habits that foster wealth, resilience, and personal growth while shedding those that drain energy, money, and potential. The power of habits lies not just in their effect on outcomes, but in their ability to define the trajectory of life. They are the bridge between who you are today and who you have the potential to become. They quietly, persistently shape behavior, financial status, skills, and mindset. When understood and leveraged, they create momentum toward success that is almost unstoppable. When ignored or mismanaged, they produce stagnation and limitation. Recognizing the profound influence of daily habits is the foundation for transforming life in a way that feels natural, sustainable, and ultimately unstoppable. Most people fail not because they lack talent or intelligence, but because they are addicted to comfort. Comfort is seductive. It whispers that staying the same is safer than growing, that the familiar is preferable to the unknown. It convinces us that the effort required to improve is optional, that risks can be avoided without consequence. Yet comfort is a trap. Every time we choose ease over challenge, we reinforce patterns that limit our potential. Over time, those small, seemingly harmless decisions accumulate, creating invisible barriers that prevent us from achieving financial, personal, and professional success. Choosing comfort over growth is often invisible in the moment. It shows up as a decision to scroll through social media instead of learning a new skill, to binge, watch television instead of exercising, or to stay in a job that feels safe rather than pursue opportunities that stretch capabilities. Each choice feels inconsequential, but it slowly trains the mind and body to avoid effort and risk. Growth, on the other hand, is uncomfortable. It requires facing fear, uncertainty, and sometimes failure. People often fail to recognize that discomfort is not a signal to retreat, but a sign that they are on the path to transformation. Comfort convinces people that immediate gratification is more important than long-term reward. It promises ease, safety, and temporary satisfaction, while growth demands patience, resilience, and perseverance. Most financial struggles, for example, are not caused by a lack of income, but by the repeated choices to prioritize instant pleasure over delayed benefit. Skipping savings to buy small luxuries, ignoring opportunities to learn new skills, and avoiding disciplined routines are all forms of giving comfort priority over growth. Each small compromise may feel justified in the moment, but over time it creates a life of limitation. Growth requires embracing risk, and risk is inherently uncomfortable. People fear failure because it threatens identity and self-esteem, yet without risk there can be no reward. Comfort keeps people in a predictable, safe space, where the cost of failure seems minimized, but the cost of stagnation is enormous. To grow financially, emotionally, and intellectually, one must take steps that are initially uncomfortable, asking hard questions, learning new skills, building new habits, and confronting personal weaknesses. The path of comfort is paved with avoidance. The path of growth is paved with courage. Many people underestimate the cumulative power of repeated comfort-seeking behaviors. A single choice to avoid effort may seem harmless, but repeated over days, weeks, and years, it forms a pattern that defines character and circumstance. This pattern extends beyond finances. It affects relationships, health, and self-esteem. The individual who constantly seeks ease becomes skilled at rationalizing avoidance, creating a mental framework where comfort is prioritized above progress. This makes breaking free from limiting patterns extraordinarily difficult, because habits formed in comfort are invisible yet deeply entrenched. Choosing growth over comfort requires awareness and intention. People must recognize the moments when comfort is dictating decisions and consciously choose action instead. This means setting boundaries against distractions, prioritizing effort over leisure, and embracing situations that challenge existing capabilities. Growth demands consistent, deliberate practice, and discomfort is an unavoidable companion. Every person who achieves lasting success has faced the tension between comfort and effort, and has chosen the path that feels hardest in the moment but most rewarding in the long run. Comfort often masquerades as rational decision-making, staying in a secure job, maintaining the status quo in habits, and avoiding difficult conversations all feel logical and responsible. Yet logic without vision is a form of stagnation. True growth requires stretching beyond the safe zone, testing limits, and exposing oneself to challenges that seem unreasonable at first. Financial, personal, and professional breakthroughs rarely occur in comfort zones. They demand discomfort, persistence, and the willingness to fail multiple times while learning and adjusting along the way. Comfort also erodes creativity and innovation. When people prioritize ease, they rely on what is familiar and avoid experimenting with new ideas. Creativity requires curiosity, experimentation, and the willingness to make mistakes. Growth-oriented individuals understand that discomfort is the fuel for progress. They embrace challenges as opportunities to innovate and improve. Conversely, those who cling to comfort limit their capacity to generate ideas, solve problems, and create value, which directly impacts their ability to achieve financial independence or personal mastery. The long-term consequences of choosing comfort over growth are profound. A life dominated by comfort may feel safe and predictable, but it is also limited, constrained, and often unfulfilling. People become stuck in cycles of mediocre performance, low self-esteem, and unrealized potential. The difference between those who succeed and those who remain stagnant is rarely about innate ability. It is about the willingness to endure discomfort, take risks, and embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. Habits of comfort create invisible barriers that are far more damaging than any external obstacle. Recognizing the seductive power of comfort is the first step toward meaningful change. People must develop the ability to notice when they are choosing ease over effort, and understand the long-term impact of those choices. Growth-oriented habits are built through repeated acts of discomfort, whether it is learning new skills, making difficult decisions, or stepping into unknown territory. Over time, These small, intentional choices accumulate, creating momentum that reshapes identity, capabilities, and outcomes, and positions the individual to achieve far more than they ever could by remaining in comfort. Most people live their lives in a constant state of consumption, often without realizing how much it holds them back. From the moment we wake up, we are bombarded with endless streams of information, entertainment, and material desires. Social media, television, news, and advertising all compete for attention, creating a cycle where we spend more time absorbing than creating. Consumption is passive. It does not generate value on its own. It simply fills time and mind space with content that ultimately benefits someone else. When this becomes habitual, it quietly shapes a life that is reactive rather than proactive, where we live off the creations of others instead of building our own. The problem with constant consumption is that it provides a false sense of productivity. People often feel informed or connected, yet they are not producing anything of tangible value. Reading endlessly without application, watching videos without reflection, or browsing for entertainment without intention trains the brain to prioritize passive engagement over active creation. Creation, on the other hand, requires effort, risk, and persistence. It produces tangible results, builds skill, and compounds over time. The gap between consuming and creating is the gap between stagnation and growth, between financial struggle and financial independence. Consumption also fosters dependency. When we consume without creating, we rely on the achievements, ideas, and products of others to satisfy our needs and desires. This dependency can extend to every area of life: financial, intellectual, and emotional. People who are habitual consumers often look for shortcuts, external validation, or instant gratification, rather than developing their own capacities. They measure themselves against what others produce instead of focusing on what they can build, which can lead to comparison, envy, and a sense of inadequacy. The trap of consumption is subtle but deeply limiting. The more time spent consuming, the less time is available for creation. Every hour spent scrolling, watching, or absorbing is an hour that could have been invested in learning, experimenting, building, or producing. Creation requires time and focus, and these are finite resources. When consumed by passive activities, energy is siphoned away from actions that could improve skills, generate income, or expand influence. Over time, small, seemingly harmless choices to consume instead of create accumulate, leaving the individual with an impressive amount of input, but almost no output, which directly hinders progress and wealth accumulation. Consumption also shapes mindset. Habitual consumers tend to adopt the perspectives, limitations, and priorities of the content they consume. Media and advertising often encourage fear, scarcity thinking, instant gratification, and conformity. Over time, this molds the way people think about money, opportunity, and potential. In contrast, creators develop a mindset of problem-solving, value generation, and resilience. They are focused on contribution rather than absorption, on building rather than borrowing ideas, and on the future they can shape instead of the narratives others impose. Mindset influenced by habits of consumption directly affects the ability to succeed. Financially, consumption without creation is a slow drain. Spending more time and money on things that do not generate return, whether material goods, entertainment, or passive learning, means fewer resources for investment in growth opportunities. Income alone does not determine wealth. How that income is used and how habits are aligned is far more important. People who prioritize creation, whether by building businesses, developing skills, or producing content, convert their time and resources into assets. Habitual consumers rarely do this, and as a result, they remain financially constrained regardless of how much they earn. Creation, on the other hand, builds leverage. When you create, you are producing something that can benefit others repeatedly, generate value over time, and enhance your influence. It transforms time from a finite resource into a multiplier of opportunity. Every article written, every skill developed, every product built adds to a foundation of value that compounds. This is the fundamental difference between those who struggle financially and those who thrive. The consistent creation of value versus the passive consumption of existing value. The barrier between consuming and creating is often fear. People hesitate to create because creation exposes them to criticism, failure, and uncertainty. Consumption, by contrast, is safe, predictable, and immediately gratifying. Overcoming this fear requires shifting focus from the comfort of passive absorption to the discomfort of active contribution. Creation involves trial and error, experimentation, and persistence, but the rewards are exponential, while habitual consumption produces only temporary satisfaction and long-term limitation. Another consequence of consumption is a lack of identity and purpose. When people consume without creating, they are constantly defined by what they take in rather than what they produce. Their sense of self becomes tied to trends, opinions, and external content instead of personal achievements or contributions. Creation shapes identity. It reinforces confidence, competence, and the understanding that your efforts can influence outcomes. Over time, creators feel empowered, whereas habitual consumers often feel powerless, reactive, and dependent on circumstances beyond their control. Breaking free from the cycle of consumption requires awareness and deliberate action. It is not about eliminating all intake, but about balancing it with output. Every hour spent consuming should be matched or exceeded by hours spent creating, building, learning by doing, and producing value. Small, consistent acts of creation compound over time, building skill, confidence, and financial resilience. Habitual creators understand that value is generated through contribution, not absorption, and that the consistent act of producing transforms not only circumstances but identity, mindset, and opportunity. Procrastination is one of the most subtle yet destructive habits that quietly undermines potential. It begins innocuously, often disguised as rational decision-making or a need for preparation. People tell themselves they will start tomorrow or next week or when the circumstances feel perfect. The mind convinces itself that delay is harmless, that putting off action will not affect long-term outcomes. Yet, every postponed action accumulates into lost time, diminished opportunities, and growing frustration. The habit of delaying what matters may seem temporary, but over weeks, months, and years, it becomes a pattern that keeps people stuck in mediocrity. The danger of procrastination lies in its invisibility. Unlike visible failures or mistakes, procrastination quietly erodes progress without drawing attention. A single day of delay feels inconsequential, but repeated across months, it forms a life characterized by unfinished projects, unfulfilled potential, and unmet goals. Many people live in a constant state of catching up, never realizing that the reason they feel behind is the cumulative effect of countless small postponements. This habit is particularly damaging because it masquerades as caution or prudence, making it easy to justify and hard to break. Procrastination often stems from fear of failure, fear of criticism, or fear of the unknown. Taking action requires stepping into uncertainty where outcomes cannot be controlled. Many people delay because they want to avoid discomfort, embarrassment, or risk. Yet, in avoiding temporary discomfort, they create long-term pain. Fear-driven delay limits growth, financial progress, and personal achievement. Those who confront fear, take imperfect action, and adjust along the way move forward, while habitual procrastinators remain trapped, watching opportunities pass by. Another consequence of procrastination is wasted energy while waiting for the perfect time. People expend mental and emotional energy worrying, planning endlessly, or imagining scenarios that may never occur. This consumes resources that could have been invested in action. The irony is that procrastination often increases stress and anxiety rather than relieving it, as tasks and responsibilities accumulate over time. The weight of postponed action becomes heavier, making the eventual start even more daunting, creating a cycle that is difficult to break. Procrastination also prevents the development of momentum. Taking action, even imperfectly, generates energy, confidence, and progress. Small, consistent steps compound over time, creating acceleration toward goals. Delaying action interrupts this process, leaving individuals stuck in a state of inaction. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in personal and financial growth, and procrastination ensures it never builds. The longer one waits, the more inertia sets in, making the first step increasingly difficult. The habit of delaying what matters affects more than just professional or financial goals. It permeates every area of life. Health, relationships, skill development, and personal fulfillment all require consistent attention and effort. When important actions are postponed, they either never happen or occur too late to create meaningful impact. This habit trains the mind to prioritize comfort over necessity, short-term ease over long-term gain, and fear over courage. Over time, a pattern of delay defines identity, shaping a person as reactive and passive rather than proactive and empowered. Procrastination thrives in an environment of distraction. Technology, social media, and endless stimuli provide excuses to defer action. The mind rationalizes that engagement with trivial tasks or entertainment is productive or deserved, masking the reality that these activities are substitutes for meaningful progress. Every diversion reinforces the habit of delay, strengthening neural pathways that favor avoidance over action. Breaking procrastination requires intentional management of attention, disciplined focus, and prioritization of tasks that truly move life forward. The habit of waiting for perfect conditions is particularly destructive. Rarely do circumstances align perfectly for action. Waiting for ideal timing, resources, or confidence ensures that opportunities are missed. Successful individuals understand that imperfect action, taken consistently, outweighs flawless planning delayed indefinitely. Taking the first step, even when conditions are not optimal, creates feedback, learning, and progress that cannot occur while waiting. Procrastination, by contrast, ensures stagnation under the illusion of preparation. Procrastination is also a habit of undervaluing time. Each moment delayed is a moment that cannot be regained. Time is finite, and its value compounds when invested in action rather than deferred endlessly. People who procrastinate fail to recognize that consistent small steps taken today accumulate into significant advantages over years. The habit of delay undervalues this compounding effect, making small choices appear inconsequential, when in reality they are the difference between mediocrity and success. Breaking free from procrastination requires awareness, discipline, and deliberate action. It involves recognizing the moments when delay is habitual, confronting the fears that drive it, and committing to consistent steps forward. Each action, no matter how small, builds momentum, confidence, and skill. By replacing hesitation with purposeful action, individuals gradually weaken the neural pathways of procrastination, strengthening those of execution and growth. Over time, the habit of taking action compounds, shaping identity, outcomes, and opportunities in ways that delay never could. Financial struggle is rarely the result of a single mistake or moment of bad luck. Most often, it is the cumulative effect of small, repeated behaviors that slowly erode potential over time. People make choices every day that seem insignificant in the moment, skipping savings, overspending on non-essential items, ignoring opportunities to invest or learn. But these small decisions compound into habits that quietly shape financial destiny. What seems trivial today can create enormous consequences tomorrow, And it is in this accumulation of minor choices that many find themselves stuck in perpetual financial limitation. One of the most destructive patterns is living beyond one's means. It starts innocuously with small indulgences, but over time it becomes a lifestyle. People justify overspending with rationalizations like, "I deserve this," or "I'll make up for it later," but the consequences always arrive. Debt accumulates, financial freedom recedes, and the ability to invest in opportunities that could generate long-term wealth diminishes. Living beyond income is a habit that prioritizes instant gratification over long-term security, keeping people trapped in cycles of scarcity despite their effort or ambition. Another key behavior is failing to prioritize savings and investment. Many people spend their money as soon as they receive it, without considering future needs or opportunities. Savings and investments are not just about money, they are about creating freedom and options. The habit of consuming everything earned rather than allocating portions toward growth ensures that opportunities for financial expansion are missed. Over time, this habit reinforces dependency on immediate income and prevents wealth accumulation, leaving individuals vulnerable to unexpected expenses, market shifts, or life changes. Impulse spending is another subtle, yet powerful, barrier to financial stability. Small purchases may feel harmless or even justified in the moment, but they add up quickly. Each impulsive decision shifts resources away from value-building activities, whether that means investing in education, skill development, or business opportunities. People who do not cultivate awareness of their spending patterns often find themselves wondering where their money went, frustrated by financial stagnation despite steady income. The habit of impulsive consumption quietly undermines potential and perpetuates a mindset of scarcity. A lack of financial literacy compounds these behaviors. Without understanding how money works, how to save, invest, or leverage resources, people are more likely to fall into patterns that hinder growth. Ignorance of financial principles allows bad habits to flourish unchecked. People may rely on luck, trends, or incomplete information rather than deliberate planning, which often leads to poor decisions. Financial literacy is not just knowledge, it is a toolkit that enables conscious choices, allowing one to break destructive cycles and replace them with habits that create long-term security and wealth. The habit of avoiding accountability also keeps many people financially constrained. Failing to track spending, ignoring budgets, or deflecting responsibility for financial decisions reinforces the cycle of limitation. Accountability provides clarity and control, revealing where adjustments are needed and where progress is being made. Without it, people remain unaware of patterns that drain resources, repeat the same mistakes, and feel powerless to change their circumstances. Accountability transforms awareness into action, creating the conditions for financial growth. Another destructive pattern is prioritizing consumption over creation. Many individuals focus on acquiring material goods or entertainment instead of generating new income, building skills, or creating businesses. Creation generates leverage, long-term value, and the possibility of exponential growth, whereas consumption only produces temporary satisfaction. Habits that emphasize accumulation of things rather than creation of value keep people in a state of financial dependence and limit their capacity to expand wealth. Procrastination with financial planning is equally harmful. Delaying budgeting, investing, or setting financial goals may feel harmless today, but each postponed action reduces the compounding benefits of time. Wealth rarely grows overnight. It is built through consistent, incremental steps taken over years. By delaying important financial actions, people give up the advantage of early momentum, leaving them behind peers who take consistent, intentional steps toward financial independence. Fear-driven decisions also keep people financially stuck. Fear of risk fear of failure, or fear of loss often prevents individuals from investing, pursuing opportunities, or making bold moves that could improve their financial situation. While caution has its place, excessive fear leads to inaction, stagnation, and missed opportunities. People who allow fear to dominate decisions reinforce habits of limitation, remaining in a state of scarcity, while others embrace calculated risk to create wealth and security. Finally, the habit of ignoring long-term vision undermines financial success. Many people focus on immediate needs and desires without considering the trajectory of their financial life. Wealth is not built through short-term indulgence. It requires planning, patience, and strategic effort over time. Without a clear vision, decisions default to comfort, convenience, or distraction, perpetuating habits that drain potential. Long-term vision aligns daily actions with future goals, transforming small, consistent behaviors into a path toward financial freedom and abundance. Awareness is the foundation of all meaningful change, yet it is one of the most neglected habits in modern life. Most people drift through their days without pausing to observe their actions, thoughts, or patterns. They react to circumstances rather than intentionally shaping them, assuming that life unfolds according to luck or external forces. Without self-awareness, it is impossible to recognize which habits are helping and which are harming. The subtle choices that seem insignificant accumulate quietly, producing either growth or limitation over time, and without attention, this process happens unconsciously, often to one's detriment. Self-awareness requires honesty. It demands a willingness to look unflinchingly at one's behaviors, choices, and patterns without excuses or rationalizations. Many people avoid this because it can feel uncomfortable or confrontational, exposing weaknesses or areas that need improvement. Yet, the very act of honest observation is empowering. It allows a person to see where they are trapped in habits of procrastination, consumption, comfort, or fear. Without this clarity, attempts at change are often superficial or short-lived, because the underlying causes of stagnation remain invisible and unaddressed. Awareness also amplifies responsibility. When people notice their patterns and recognize the consequences of their actions, they no longer have the luxury of blaming external circumstances for their outcomes. Accountability and awareness are inseparable. Understanding how one's habits shape reality creates the conditions for intentional action. Those who cultivate awareness learn to take ownership of their daily choices, recognizing that each decision either moves them closer to their goals or reinforces limitation. This shift in perspective is critical for personal, financial, and professional growth. Patterns that hinder success are often subtle. They manifest as small, repeated decisions, spending time on distractions, avoiding difficult conversations, postponing action, or succumbing to comfort. Without awareness, these behaviors feel normal and harmless. They become part of identity, defining what a person believes they are capable of. Awareness acts as a magnifying lens, revealing these patterns in sharp detail. It illuminates the invisible forces that shape habits and outcomes, making it possible to intervene and redirect energy toward behaviors that produce results. Awareness strengthens decision-making. People who operate without reflection often make choices based on impulse, emotion, or habit, rather than intentional consideration. Awareness slows down this process, allowing individuals to evaluate the long-term consequences of actions before committing to them. It creates the space needed to prioritize growth, creation, and meaningful effort over short-term comfort or distraction. Over time, this conscious approach to decision-making becomes automatic, turning awareness itself into a self-reinforcing habit that guides daily behavior. It also fosters resilience. When a person is aware of their tendencies, strengths, and weaknesses, They can anticipate challenges and respond proactively rather than reactively. Awareness reveals where one is likely to encounter obstacles or temptation, and it enables preparation, adaptation, and strategic adjustment. In contrast, those who lack awareness are blindsided repeatedly, facing the consequences of habits and patterns they cannot see or control. Cultivating awareness transforms setbacks into learning opportunities and prevents recurring mistakes from becoming entrenched. Awareness is essential for growth because it identifies gaps between current reality and desired outcomes. People often fail to progress not because they lack ability, but because they are unaware of the discrepancies between where they are and where they want to be. Observation, reflection, and honest evaluation create a roadmap for change. By recognizing these gaps, individuals can set clear goals, design actionable steps, and align habits with aspirations, ensuring that effort is purposeful rather than scattered or misdirected. The habit of awareness also enhances relationships and influence. People who are attuned to their own patterns and behaviors can better understand and empathize with others. Awareness of social dynamics, communication styles, and personal biases allows for stronger connections, more effective collaboration, and the ability to influence outcomes positively. Conversely, a lack of self-awareness can lead to repeated conflicts, misunderstandings, and missed opportunities to build meaningful networks, which are critical for personal and professional success. Awareness cultivates a growth-oriented mindset. By observing how choices, effort, and discipline compound over time, individuals internalize the principles that drive success. They begin to notice the impact of habits on outcomes, creating a feedback loop where insight fuels better action. Over time, this reinforces self-efficacy, confidence, and motivation, as people see tangible results from conscious decisions. Awareness transforms abstract concepts like discipline, perseverance, and focus into observable, actionable patterns that guide behavior. Finally, awareness is the gateway to intentional transformation. It reveals the full spectrum of behaviors that define life outcomes, illuminates hidden obstacles, and clarifies the actions that drive progress. With awareness, individuals are no longer passive participants in their own lives. They become active architects of their future. Every habit, choice, and action can be examined, understood, and refined. The consistent practice of awareness turns observation into insight, insight into action, and action into meaningful change, creating the conditions for a life shaped by purpose, growth, and lasting success.